Hey everybody, Jake here from Alaska Gear Lab, the experimental division of Alaska Gear Company, and I'm here to introduce to you guys one of our newest little creations here, our Basecamp Tarp series. Our Basecamp Tarp series comes in two mods, so you can get it two different ways. This right here is our more base model, which is a tarp. You get 6 sections of guy line and you get 6 stakes. And then our full set will come with the tarp, the 6 guy lines, the 6 stakes, and 2 poles. This is a very diverse system that can be set up with trees, bushes, branches, trekking poles, paddles, oars, whatever you want. So you don't always necessarily need the poles, though they are a great feature to have around. And there is one thing to note on our guy lines. When you get your system here, your guy lines are gonna come together, tied together in a 4-pack and a 2-pack. The 2-pack is the longer of the guy lines, and that is for the central part of your tarp, whereas the 4 smaller sections are for the corners of the tarp. All the guy lines would work regardless of how you set them up, but this is the most efficient way to use the system. And now I'm gonna show you how to set up your Basecamp Tarp system. So again, to reiterate, this is all the pieces you get with your system. This is gonna be your main tarp, and this is a 14-foot long tarp. And the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this tarp and we're gonna just lay it out in a big open area. And you can do this kind of just like a bed sheet. Now, in windy conditions, you might wanna keep your stakes or your poles nearby so you can just lay them on the tarp so that it doesn't fly away on you or anything like that. Having 2 people is helpful, but it is definitely not necessary. There we go. So now we have our tarp laid out the way we want. And since this system is brand new, we are gonna have to attach our guy lines directly to these black grommets on the corner tie out positions. You can do this however you'd like. A simple overhand knot works just fine, but you can get fancy with your knots, but it's all up to you how you decide to do that. We're gonna do that now so we can stake out the tarp. To reiterate again, guys, your guy outlines come packaged in 2 sections. This section of 4 is for the corners of the tarp, which I'll show you here momentarily, and these 2 are for the center of the tarp. The only difference between these 2 is the length of the cord. All right, guys, so again, we have our 4 shorter tie-out points, and these 4 tie-out points are for the corners, so the 2 colored positions. So right here, right there, that far corner, and right there. I'm just gonna attach them on here, which again, you can use whatever type of knot you want. For ease, you can just do an overhand knot. Also, when these are actually adhered to the actual system for the first time, it's up to you, but there's actually a Velcro-sided pocket under here. That's great for storage, so they can stay attached all the time. When you're attaching these cord lashings, you have 2 sections. You have one that's completely empty like this, and then you have another one with the actual guy line tensioner. When you're attaching them to the tarp, you're gonna use the non-guy line tensionered end. So once you have all your guy line tensioners tied to all of your corners, you're gonna have the actual tensioner itself, this little black piece right here, and you can see it just kind of ends. The way these work so that they work all the time for you is you grab on top of the tensioner like so, and it will actually make the loop. And this loop is where your stake will go, is right here. So if we were to pull this out right now, like so, your stake would go on the ground, which we'll show you here momentarily. This is where the stake will actually go into the ground, and then that will allow you to use that tensioner to loosen or tighten your tarp. Like mentioned earlier, your Basecamp tarp comes with 6 oversized stakes. These stakes are really, really durable. They're great. They have a good strike zone for actually using a sledgehammer, which we'll actually use today to hammer these into the ground. But now we're gonna actually show you the angle to put these in most efficiently for your tarp. So just like any other tarp or tent system, these stakes will just go in the ground. These stakes specifically have a little hook, which you can put in, and then we're just gonna hammer in here. And that's actually enough for our tarp system. It doesn't need to go all the way to the ground because the cord can move freely around that. You can punch it all the way into the ground if you have softer ground. One other thing about the staking system is, as you can see, I have a lot of looseness in my line, which is okay because once the tarp is actually set up, don't forget we can just tension it so that it goes tight. So now I've got my 6 stakes installed, as you can kind of see with the guy lines. But anyway, they're all staked into the ground. Now just make sure, again, because the looseness is totally okay, it allows you to erect the actual tarp itself. These guy line tensioners can, again, they'll tighten like that and they'll loosen like that. For the setup portion, you can leave them pretty loose because the second you kind of get the tarp set up wobbly, you'll just be able to go around and snug those right up. All right, guys, the time has come. Now it's time to actually erect the tarp and get it up off of the ground. If you've purchased the full system, you're gonna get 2 of these very simple to use aluminum poles. They have multiple adjustments that's just easy with the push pin. Can go to the next taller setting. The tarp, again, can be used with a variety of other poles for erecting or trees and stuff, but this is just the base system and it works well even in a field like here. So a really important aspect of setting this tarp up is when you go to insert your pole, you're gonna take the tip of the pole and you're gonna insert it into the grommet on the end, like so. Once it's in there, it's nice and snug. You wanna make sure that you come from the underside of the tarp outward. And this is just a base setup. The tarp is not completely set up. We're gonna do this on the other side and then we're gonna snug it down. Again, we'll stuff the pole under the tarp system, push it into the center of the grommet, pop it up like so. And then from this point, because I want the tarp to be as tall as possible, I'll max out my poles. All right, now for the easy part. Now we're just gonna snug everything down. Typically when you snug down, you wanna start with the long pieces. There we go. And then you can go and contact all your corner pieces. Again, just don't forget with the tensioners, you bend them up like that and it allows the line to move through freely. And then once there's enough tension, it'll actually hold itself there for you. All right, now our tarp's mostly set up taut. We can actually feel that it's nice and secure. You can just continue adjusting to your liking. Sometimes these work a little better with rocks at the base. Honestly, it works a lot better in the wind if it's set up properly than people think. It's also very, very easy to break down if it does get too windy. Say that it gets too windy and you just wanna like have your tarp down so the wind can pass for an hour or so. All you need to do, grab your tarp line, pop it out, and you pop out the other one as well, and you just drop it right on the ground with the tarp poles on top. You can come back, all your lines are already tensioned, pop them back in the hole, like so, and you can just re-erect the thing. One of the coolest features about this tarp is actually our detachable gear hanger right here. You can see it runs the whole length of the tarp. So if you need to hang wet layers, you need to do whatever you need to do, you can do it. It's also completely detachable with just an easy clip right there. It can be loosened or tightened very easily. And again, it's great for lanterns or lighting adjustment because if you can't tell, there's actually sectioned off pieces of web which are good for Lucy lights, lanterns. All right, everybody, and that is our breakdown of our Basecamp tarp. So that tells you what you need to know, how to set the tarp up, the pieces it comes with. And this is an Alaska Gear Lab product that is part of our experimental division of Alaska Gear Company. So these tarps can be checked out and purchased online at alaskagearcompany.com or at one of our 3 retail locations located in Alaska across the state in Anchorage, Fairbanks, and Palmer. Check them out.